lights flicker in my view. Soft echoes of a dream so new. Even when the rain starts to fall, I know I'll make it through it all. Today's alright, tomorrow's fine. No need to chase, just take your time. Through the highs and through the lows, you're right where you're meant to go. Every step, every turn, lessons come, lessons burn, but the sun will rise again. And I'll keep moving on, my friend. Today's alright, tomorrow's fine. No need to chase, just take your time. Through the highs and through the lows, you're right where you're meant to go. Every step, every turn, lessons come, lessons burn, but the sun will rise again. And I'll keep moving on, my friend. Today's alright, tomorrow's fine. No need to chase, just take your time. Through the highs and through both lows, you're right where you're meant to go. I fell asleep
Hello, Sumin. Can you hear us?
with the curtains open,
No,
the
Sumin.
light dawning in, and I wish it was
Hello,
your
everyone.
smile.
We'll start
Hi.
in 7
Good
minutes.
evening,
Most
everybody.
people
Yeah.
don't have dreams.
Hi, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you for
Have
joining.
one that's
Well,
fulfilling,
thank you for your
one
time.
that frightens me. The people who yell at you want you to fly straight with them. So I can see why it's tempting. And maybe if it were normal, I wouldn't care what they think. But when you show them your smile, my blood boils. I give up on my dream if it meant never hearing how they teased you. The people who tell you to be more like friendly rest on a cyanide pillow. And maybe if normal meant safe, I'd ignore. But when you show them your smile, my blood boils. I am angry, but only at the ticking clock. I wasn't so good when I had you, and I had to give you up. And if I have to see one more time, you show them your bitter. Sticky fingers on the counter, babe. Crumbs scattered like a midweek rave. Open jaws and a butter knife crave for a peanut kingdom we'll engrave. Toasty bread kissed by morning light. Peanut butter making everything right. No worries, shadows out of sight. Just a spread of joy, pure delight. Spread the love on your morning toast. Creamy dreams, that's what you'll boast. Peanut butter, yeah, we toast. Life's a jar we love the most. Crunchy secrets buried deep inside. Between two slices we can't hide. Golden waves on a breakfast tide. Peanut butter joy we can't divide. Midnight snack with a spoon in hand. Peanut butter dreams, there we stand. In this sticky wonderland. Life's more nutty than we had planned. Spread the love on your morning toast. Creamy dreams, that's what you'll boast. Peanut butter, yeah, we toast. Life's a jar we love the most. Midnight snack with a spoon in hand. Peanut butter dreams, there we stand.
반갑습니다, 여러분. 8시에 시작하겠습니다.
Life's more nutty than we had planned. Spread the love on your morning toast. Creamy dreams, that's what you'll boast. Peanut butter,
죄송한데 7시 아니고 8시에 시작하세요?
life's a jar we
아웃, 잘못 말했네. 7시에 시작하겠습니다. 잠시 후에.
네.
감사합니다.
I've been gone for far too long. City lights and crowded gongs. No more lonely hotel songs. Finally where I belong. Dusty roads and neon signs. Memories play on rewind. Heartaches for your hand in mine. Coming home to what feels right. Coming home to you tonight. Stars that shine a bit more bright. Lost no more an endless night. Coming home, it feels so right. Echoes of a distant past. Wander not seeking at last. Find a way to make it fast. Back to us where love will last. Coming home to you tonight. Stars that shine a bit more bright. Lost no more an endless night. Coming.
Okay. Hello, everyone. 반갑습니다. So we have a special guest today, Gauri, and thank you very much for participation. 오늘 참가해 주셔서 감사합니다. 오늘 we're going to record the video on YouTube, so we will share the link after the webinar. So we're going to spend for the next 60 minutes and probably 40 minutes presentation and 20-minute Q&A. And we also have the pre-questions. And also, if you have a real-time question, just to write down on the comments. Okay, everyone's joining, so we'll wait maybe one more minute. Yeah. 반갑습니다. Thank you very much for coming. We have lots of participants today. Hello. 다양한 분들 와주셔서 감사드립니다. 오늘 많은 분들 신청 주셔가지고 굉장히 기대가 되고요. Okay. 외국 분도 계세요. I know some friends and families from Gauri side joined today. So welcome. 감사합니다. Okay. So okay, we can start now. So Gauri, can you share your screen? Okay, I see that. And you can turn on your microphone.
All right, can everyone hear me well?
Yeah, I hear you. We hear you. So yeah, now is your time. Thank you.
All right. So thank you everybody for joining. I hope everyone can hear me and I'm understandable. I just want to quickly say thank you to Brian for giving me this opportunity and the chance to meet all of you virtually. So this webinar is all about becoming ready for opportunity, especially if you're looking in the European Union or in European companies that are based globally. I'm really excited to bring forward my learnings as a coach, as a professional, just as a person, as I'm navigating self-employment. So without further delay, if you're all ready, I think we can start. So here is briefly what we're covering today. The presentation has the coaching approach, so you have a flavor of what I do as a coach and also kind of what Brian can bring as well. We're going to start with identifying gaps, right? Is it our knowledge? Is it our awareness? Is it our understanding of different cultural practices? What's really driving us to seek out this type of training? Then we're going to focus on, sorry, did anyone have a question? No. Is that, yeah, okay. Sorry, I can't see all the participants or the chat right now, but feel free to just send me a message or to speak up if you have a question in real time. Then we're going to move on to bridging the gaps. What can we do to kind of develop our understanding and work closely with each other? What tools and resources do we have currently, and what do we need to further harness? And then there's always reflection in coaching, what's coming up for you, what more can you do, and how can you self-coach? Sometimes your coach is not available, you may not have the budget for a coach, but you can always coach yourself. And then we have a couple of next steps for you as well. Okay, so here's a bit of an introduction. What has kind of brought me to this webinar for the Korean audience? So I am a coach in training. I'm certifying with the International Coaching Federation. Currently, I've covered about 70 coaching hours and my training component. Once I reach 100 hours, after I take an exam, I'll be eligible to certify. I've worked in several global organizations. So Sandoz is in the pharmaceutical industry, Deloitte, the global consulting group, the European Medicines Agency, and Thomson Reuters. And I've done a bunch of internships. So for example, at the WHO, I've also worked with the European Commission briefly. I delivered coaching workshops at the London School of Economics for a small mental health startup. And I'm actually originally Indian. So you must have noticed I was born in India and I moved to the Netherlands when I was 8 years old with my father and my entire family. My father moved for work. So this actually started off all these multicultural interactions. When I was a teenager, I used to help a Korean student with her English. We used to read Harry Potter books so she could develop her vocabulary. And she would spend some time telling me about Korea, what her impressions were and, how it was for her to integrate. And then fast forward, I was working at Sandoz and a colleague of mine who's also present here today, she helped me with my network, understanding my job responsibilities, and gave me a lot of visibility in the organization. And then what followed after that were multiple opportunities to move into consulting, to engage with the leadership team. I mean, there was so much that came out of it. So that taught me the importance of this type of strategy, but also having a good mentor, having a good understanding between colleagues. And then when I started doing my research, because I've never been to Korea myself, I realized that there's a lot to Korean culture that I personally don't know and who I'm hoping to learn today. But here on the right, I have a number of pictures. I have kimchi, which I absolutely love, K-pop, Squid Games. So interestingly enough, I live in Amsterdam and I went to see Peggy Goo, who's a very big music producer who's originally Korean, and I really enjoy that type of music. And when I was younger, I was also into sort of skincare and makeup, and my father had this very, very dear colleague who sent me skin food, so this milkshake that you can see at the bottom. And it was so close to being edible, but it was one of the most softest, most gentle skincare products that I absolutely loved. And I think that started my curiosity for the Korean skincare industry. So, just to give you a little bit more context about myself as well, I think living in Europe gives you the opportunity to sort of move around and learn about a place by experiencing it firsthand. So, beyond the work context. This is me in Amsterdam, actually driving a boat briefly on a canal. That's what we do in the summer. Europe also has hiking paths. So, the next picture is Albania. Matera, which is like this prehistoric village in Italy that holds lots of traditional living practices, but is now like a resort. There's also Sarakyniko Beach, which is in Greece, as we can see, very beautiful landscapes. And then I spent some time at the Swiss-French border during an internship. So that's me in Annecy, which is a very picturesque French village. And if you can see, there's such a diversity of landscapes and cultures in Europe that even for me, there's so much to explore. And I feel like my lens is unique because I'm originally Indian, so a lot of my cultural shaping has happened at home and where, previously before me moving to Europe. So sorry, I just want to give all of you in the webinar a chance to also share your cultural, premises. And if you're okay to share, and if not, I can start pointing out people, which I really don't want to do. But I looked into Korean culture and I realized that Seoul was the capital of culture very recently. And there's a very beautiful picture here of all kinds of interesting things going on. And I realized that Korea is really making its mark on the global map. So, for example, it's a business leader in Asia. You also have very beautiful and diverse landscapes, expat-friendly business cultures, lots of industries that are growing, like biologics, skincare, semiconductors. One of the most interesting cultural trends for me is this pali culture of getting things done quickly, being really fast. And I think that I associate that with efficiency. And I think these are some of the traits that make you as Koreans, very competitive on the labor market as well. So maybe let's take a minute or two here, if we're all ready. And I'd really like to hear from people in the audience, like, what are you most proud of in your culture and what are your strengths? And give me your insider view, because I'd love to hear, like, living there, what do you observe and what do you think helps you become competitive globally?
Um, Hi.
Hi,
Uh,
Suman.
Hi, it's pleasure to meet you guys all, and I believe I now have a chance to I get an I like chance to speak for now, and then to briefly introduce myself, I am currently working at pharmaceutical manufacturing company called West. It's American company, and I have lived in Sweden for 2 years,
Okay.
and basically, yeah, and last time when I visited Sweden, I flew via Amsterdam, so I stayed in Amsterdam 2 hours. Anyway, Yeah, so I think Korea, like you mentioned, Korea is abundant of good things like um it's comparatively safer than other countries, like no burglaries or no, like almost no pickpockets. But um and also I like the political resilience of this country. Like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say something political here, but I am very proud. I'd like to say I'm very proud of the political resilience here because we have gone through very severe political turbulence back in December, but now I guess we are in under the process of healing.
Mhm.
So that's what I feel most proud of, rather than K-pop or um, other like K movies or K contents, K media. I would like to put it this way. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you for sharing that, Sumin, and for introducing yourself in the group. It's very brave. I'd just like to summarize. So Sumin has been working for pharmaceutical companies. She's flown to Sweden via Amsterdam, so she's familiar with various countries there. And she has raised a very important point that Korea, given its geopolitical location and what it's been facing politically, I don't want to go deeper into that, but I'm sure we all know as we've been keeping track of the news, is that political resilience is something that you're facing on a daily basis, and things change very rapidly. There are things that you're experiencing that the rest of the world is not really aware of, or may not even have full access to in terms of information, reporting, right? And still, you're kind of making it a point to develop constructively as a culture, as a nation. So that's kind of what you're bringing here, and I think that's very powerful. And I want to thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Do we have any other insights in the audience? Yeah. I mean, I can quickly share a story as well because I haven't shared how I've come into contact with Brian. So my colleague in one of my previous companies, the one that was helping me, she also much later put me in touch with Brian, and I realized that he's in Korea helping people that have been displaced and unemployed in companies. And he himself has also a very rich travel history of various cultures. And he actually suggested this initiative because he says Korea has a lot to offer, and let's look into deeper like what Koreans can bring. So if there's no one else in the audience that wants to share, maybe Brian can say a few words about what his experience is.
Yeah, actually, we have some comments in the chat. Um, let's read one. We can access to nature easily inside the city, and food, tradition with the high tech. The paperwork is processed faster than here than in Europe, and K-pop, skincare, food. Those are some of the comments from the participant. And yes, as Gauri said, I had the opportunity to work with the Swiss company, Swiss AI company, on LinkedIn in 2016.
Okay.
Recruiter from Europe contact me, and I got hired for the Korean market development manager of a Swiss company. So I had the opportunity to work with the European people and visited Swiss several times, Switzerland, and I learned so much from the people, the team, and the culture and travel. So I absolutely love European culture as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's nice to see so many people in the audience that have had the chance to experience both Korean as well as various European sides. I think it's nice to see like what solutions we come up with later in terms of helping others on the same journey. Yeah, and I'm glad we were able to mention something that wasn't previously covered, like the political resiliency. And I know that Korea has a very rich history as well. And, I think there's a lot to learn about that region as well. So I'm just going to move on to the next slide. Um, right, so this is a little exercise, and I think I want to be interactive here as well now that everyone's speaking. This is just a very simple exercise in how we sort of introduce ourselves in the global environment. And one thing to note about Europe is that every country has its own dialect, its own language, its own culture. So English even though it's not the standard language, it is widely spoken so everyone can communicate across borders. And a very simple way to do this is just to say hello or good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. What is your name? So my name is Gauri. I currently live in Amsterdam. I'm 35 years old. I work for myself. I have my own company. And it's nice to meet you. Super simple, very small sentences. And I just want to set the tone for, when you're learning a language, it can start to feel very challenging. And if we start to break down topics into small exercises, simple ways of speaking, not complicated words, we can make a good start. And with a lot of my translation help here on the right, I do want to let everybody know in this webinar that your level of English right now doesn't matter. We're all learning. I'm not an expert in Korean at all. I don't even understand the basics. So please don't feel intimidated or shy because we're all here to help each other and we're all here to learn. I'm wondering if there's anyone in the audience that would like to introduce themselves and tell me about where they are in Korea. Yeah.
Gauri, the giant said that age could be can be a sensitive topic for some people. I'm completely okay with that. So if some participant think the age is something you don't want to share, you don't have to mention that. Okay?
Okay, that's absolutely fine. I'll just reiterate, if there's anything actually on the left in the introduction exercise that makes you feel uncomfortable, like where you're located, you can just say Korea, South Korea, close to Seoul. You don't have to reveal the details if you don't want to. You can also just, you don't have to name the company. You can just say which industry. So yeah, and actually, I have an interesting story about age. I learned from my Korean friends back in school that when you're born in Korea, you're already 1 year old. Is that correct? Yeah. So
Yes.
actually, everyone in Korea is younger when you come into the other side of the world because we don't count us as one when you're born. So actually, that's a gain in age in that sense. But yeah, that was just me trying to make a poor joke. But yeah, like Brian said, you don't have to share anything you're not comfortable with. So if anyone would like to introduce themselves, we can take a moment here.
Hello, my name is Rosie and I live in currently Seoul, but I'm preparing for working holiday in Spain. And I'm like 27 years old in Korean, but 25 years old in international age. And I work in marketing. So yeah, it's nice to meet you guys.
Thank you so much, Rosie. That was really beautifully done. And how exciting that you're going to be doing a working holiday in Spain. Do you want to take a moment? Where did you learn how to speak English? Like, what was your journey like? Is that something you'd like to share?
Actually, I studied English education when I was in the university, but actually, when I was young, I think I really loved learning English. So I remember like I stayed up all night to study English, like doing homework for English Academy. Like that's how I realized I really enjoy learning English. And when I was
Okay.
in like middle school and high school, English was my favorite subject.
Okay.
So I think that brought me to study English in university. And I got a chance to go to the United States for an exchange student. And when I really could use my English to real native English speaker, it made me feel so excited. That made me like English more, even more. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's very interesting that you're sharing that, and I'm glad you've had a positive experience, but you've been so committed to learning English and you managed to also navigate a native English speaking environment that way. So you've set a very positive example, and I'm sure that you've inspired many people today in the workshop. All right.
Thank you.
So here's our first sort of brainstorming exercise, and I do need everyone in the audience to kind of get their brains together. We're just going to do a quick perception versus reality check. And we already briefly mentioned that, there's more to Korea, for example, than K-pop or skincare. And we realize that there are more layers to the country. So I think we can work both ways. We can think about what Koreans think about Europe, or vice versa, what Europeans have this impression of Korea, depending on where you're from. So let's just take a minute, and if anyone wants to kind of start off with, how they think about a particular culture, how did that insight come? And then did you learn something that challenged that view? Like, did you visit that place, or did someone who's lived there tell you something differently? I'm just curious to hear about your perception if that's ever happened. I don't know if there's somebody in the audience that has a recent encounter, or
May I?
yeah,
May
go
I?
ahead. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so this is what I experienced when I lived in Sweden. Well, I can give you two examples that I actually experienced. The first thing was kind of uh well, both are kind of racist experience, I would like to say. The first one was when I was doing my exchange student semester in Sweden. Um, so we had this mingle together with all these European students, and there was a European student who came to me and asked, "Oh, so you guys are, I heard you guys are eating dogs." And I have cats. Have you tasted cats? Are there any canned dog foods?
Mhm.
Canned cat food? Like, I mean, literally like canned dog meat or canned cat meat, something like that. So that's, I felt very, well, I didn't feel offensive at that time, but when I think back about it, it was a really, really negative experience.
Okay.
And the second one was there are some people who are taking a like bow with their two hands putting together, like in Thailand, that
Okay.
we barely don't do this in Korea or in Japan or in Far East Asia. We just take a bow. We do not put two hands together when we are taking a bow. So basically, they were thinking like Asia. I don't know. Maybe they were thinking Asia was a one big country. I don't know. So yeah. So this is what I have experienced, and I still believe um quite a number of Europeans think like this. Well, maybe lesser than 10 years ago. But yeah, I still believe there are some people who are like this.
Okay. So first of all, I'm sorry that was not the most pleasant experience, and it's brave of you to share in a public forum. So my understanding is that you feel like outside of Asia, people associate all Asian practices or all Asian cultures to be the same. And actually, we do this in India as well. We put our hands together and we say hello. So what I'm hearing is that you felt like people didn't recognize Korea for what it was, or they had very limited information and they associated that with Korea. And maybe, I mean, what is your understanding? Do you feel like they were intentionally trying to be racist, or they just lacked awareness and they just found something that they thought they would have in common with you? Like their limited information about Korea, and they tried to build a bridge, saying, okay, this is this interesting new person from Korea. I heard something on television before, and, I'm going to open this conversation with this. Do you think that was the case, or do you think there was something, you know, deeper going on?
Um, I want to believe that they had no intention to be deliberately racist,
Okay,
but yeah, it's I like yeah, like you said, it's I believe it was a lack of information that
okay,
Asia is not a big country. Like we have our own culture and
yeah,
yeah. So like I mean it's same in Korea. Like I don't think major of people don't have like deep history between Pakistan or India or Thailand or Vietnam, something like this. So it's like eye-opening experience, I would like to say. Like, oh, like
Yeah.
I should be more aware of this kind of like cultural broadness or
Yeah.
diversity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I would like to put it that way. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you
Yeah.
for recognizing that and reframing your own perception for yourself. I think that's actually a powerful coaching practice. So you started with the powerful emotion that was, bringing up some sort of negative feelings for yourself. And then now we've tried to depersonalize that. And we've understood that there's a range of cultural understanding that we need to find ourselves in and also realize that the other person's coming from their lens. And, how can you kind of try to bridge that? So that's our next exercise. And here, I think everyone's got smartphones. I would like you to just take your camera and access the Menti poll. So there's a little barcode here on the right of the slide. And if you just click on there, you should have access to a set of polls. And thanks to Google Translate, I've tried to translate some of these cultural traits and practices into Korean as well. So in case, this is a word you've not heard before, it's a little bit complicated, you'll be able to just, in your view, talk about how important risk-taking or hierarchy or timeliness is, in your view, in Europe versus in Korea. And I'll tell you why we're doing this. As we've just realized that, perception and reality varies very much, especially based on your lived experience. So now we have an opportunity in this, global forum to share, okay, what is our view? What do Koreans actually think? And what do Europeans think? And is there a gap? Is there something we want to further develop on based on, what is important in a business culture? And for example, relationship building, right? It's important everywhere in the world. It's just that people have different ways of doing it. Some people will spend time with each other outside of the work context to get to know each other, their families, to understand how these people work. For others, it might mean team building events at work, working closely with each other on assignments and projects to understand their strengths and weaknesses. So I think it's just, there's so many more nuances to this. And through this exercise, we'll understand, okay, what's important in Europe and what's important in South Korea. So it's super simple. It shouldn't take you longer than a couple of seconds. I'm just going to also put it starts with how important is this for South Koreans? I don't know if you can see my phone. And then the next one is for Europe. So if we can just take a few moments and kind of go through that.
G said, does it mean I think important is a bit confused if I don't prefer hierarchy where I put the bar.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I would just for yourself say what is important. Yeah, it's hierarchy. And if it's not important, I would put that on low importance if you don't prefer hierarchy. And I can tell you increasingly in Europe, what we see is, well, not all across Europe, not in all countries. I think it's very different, for example, in France or Germany versus Italy and the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, where I'm from, we love flat cultures. We're very direct. Even people senior than us, they give their opinions very strongly. Juniors are encouraged to speak up. It's how you kind of find your place on a team. Unless you're facing clients, I think that's very different. If you're going with your team to the client, you might have to work with a little bit of hierarchy because you're there as an external advisor. I think in Italy, it's different. Hierarchy matters very much, where your position, how long you've been in the organization. So there's also some kind of regional variances there. And yeah, has everyone seen the Menti for Europe? I think I'm just gonna, yeah, sorry, I just need to maybe quickly open that up on my screen.
Okay.
Sorry, I think there's a little technical glitch. But just maybe in the interest of time, I will just ask you guys to speak up. So now we've done the poll for Korea. What do you think it is for Europe? Let's choose one or two. So I just spoke to you about hierarchy. Maybe we should talk about assertiveness. I think that's really important. Can someone tell me how important do they think assertiveness is in Europe for vice versa Korea?
Yeah, definitely hierarchy.
Okay.
In the corporate life,
Okay.
we have all the kind of document line. So we need to go upper to get a approver. So final
Okay.
approver,
Okay.
sometimes the boss is on leave. Sometimes it takes time to get the final approval from the boss. So
Yeah.
it's less autonomy, I believe, for many managers or juniors in the corporate life. So hierarchy is definitely the one still existing.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. And I think approval processes are similar in larger complex organizations as well, even in Europe. I think in that capacity, yes, for decision making, it's important to get those sign-offs. However, maybe informally, you might have more say in what's happening on the team. You might be able to express yourself a bit more in front of your bosses. Sometimes even express negative things, like, you're not happy in a specific culture, what can be improved. So that's kind of the link between assertiveness and hierarchy as well, and that you might see how a bunch of different traits make up a corporate culture or an organizational culture. And depending on your understanding of it, it'll help you position yourself as well as do well in whatever position you're seeking or whatever you're trying to develop on professionally. I'm gonna, okay, switch over. So I think I briefly mentioned this. Europe is a very big, diverse continent, lots of different countries, cultures, political influences, economic influences. As mentioned, there are certain more popular languages like German, French, and Spanish that are also taught in schools. So many people are multilingual and they learn these languages so they can work in diplomacy or they can work across Europe. And certain roles, especially if you're working in healthcare, like patients, or very, very client-facing, like working with local industries, there is typically a requirement for you to have a minimal national sort of level understanding of the local language. And the thing is, though, many European countries support this. There is a standardized framework. You will have curriculum, sometimes even free language courses for foreigners and expats. So they help you kind of participate in the labor market and integrate if you take the ownership of doing that. And yeah, there's also the Europe-South Korea Free Trade Agreement. I think South Korea is one of the first countries that Europe has this type of agreement with. I learned about it just when I was researching for the webinar, but if anyone in the audience has heard about it, they're actively engaged in business activity, and if it benefits them, that would be an interesting perspective to also hear. Take a pause. Okay, we can also come back to it later. We're going to do a Q&A, so if something comes up for you later, you can also bring that up. All right. What is next? Okay, so part of understanding role-based competencies. So essentially, larger global organizations, also European organizations, they have set sort of competencies that are important for specific roles. And it's a combination of hard, so technical skills, as well as soft skills. So a role might require you to be very good with numbers, but take risks and also reach out to customers. It's called cold calling. Like, you have to explore new markets and find new leads. So sometimes when you're evaluating a job description, it's good to evaluate this for yourself. Like, what are your core skills and what does the job require? This is what this webinar is all about. Find a mentor or a coach, someone that can help you with it, right? If you're struggling with positioning yourself or developing the necessary skills, or thinking, I don't feel so confident even though I've been doing this for a while. This is where, someone that's worked in the EU or studies there can help you. This is one of my favorite slides. So when I entered coaching, I was struggling professionally, wasn't happy where I was, and I was trying to find my next step. And as I immersed myself deeper into coaching through studying it, through practicing it, and working with different coaches, I realized that there are so many benefits to it. And it's up to you to realize, okay, how do I guide my own development based on what coaching can offer? So some examples are enhanced decision making, improved motivation. So recently I realized since I started working for myself, my motivation has increased significantly because I feel like there's more possibilities. I have to drive my own development. I also learned to handle and integrate feedback better. So I just wanted to showcase that there's so much you can gain from coaching, and I'd love to kind of bring that forward for you. So bridging the gap, right? What can we do when we're learning a new language? I created a little word cloud, but I'm also open to hearing your suggestions in the audience. Like, how do you learn? So, for example, we had Rosie who learned English at school, but she also stepped outside of her comfort zone and she went to a country that spoke native English and practiced there, you know? And so she developed her confidence and she applied and practiced her skills. Some people like to read books. With my with the person I was tutoring when I was a teenager, I used to read Harry Potter because I'm like, it's a popular story. You know, there's so much vocabulary in there, so much imagination that's going to help her. You can learn the grammar, you can do some writing, you can ask for help, you can engage with strangers and just practice, like take that risk. There's many ways to learn the language, and nowadays with the internet and media, there's many possibilities as well, so that shouldn't hold you back. I again looked a little bit to see, you know, what are the options in Korea. So you have, for example, the British Council. They actually teach English in Korea. There's over 8,000 English students there and over 100 expert teachers. You can use an online portal like Lingoda. They give you daily lessons, and if you have a streak of lessons, I think they refund your money back. So they really incentivize you to practice daily and get better at the language. And I think one of the benefits is that they use the European framework, so you are, you know, working to a strict curriculum when you're learning. And then there's expat communities. So not all of you might see foreigners very often, but there are locations in Korea where expats get together, and obviously there might be even Koreans who've lived abroad who've come back. So they are good people to kind of reach out to and see if you can practice or learn from them, if you feel comfortable doing that, right? Mock interviews. So this is something you can do in coaching, but also outside of coaching. Once you know what type of role and how they interview, and this is an important part of job searching, you can prepare. So I've worked in consulting, and before I joined, actually, I had a couple of months to kind of prepare for my transition. And I used to spend time on this coaching, consulting case prep platform, practicing business cases. So for example, here is a case from Bain, like a fashion company wants to assess what's happening to their revenues. And there's a specific framework and how to tackle that. And by doing more of this, I've developed the confidence to actually, you know, interview with consulting firms. Building a network is another way to do it. I spoke about my personal experience in organizations. That's kind of led me now to this Korean audience. But it's like a domino effect. You speak to one person, they understand your skill sets, they know what you have to offer, and then they connect you with more. And, you know, before you know it, you start with one and you know like 15 new people. You know, and that brings new opportunities. But you can also publish content, you can solve problems for people, many, many possibilities. A quick tool that I want to go over is, as soon as I started working for myself, I realized I don't always have the time or the logistics to go into language classes. So every time I have a couple of minutes, I do my Duolingo classes. It's free. You can learn to listen, speak, read, and write. And I mean, Korean's on there, English is on there, and you can really get good feedback from an app, and it's just available on your fingertips. Same thing with Google Translate. If you are unsure about communicating, you know, on a meeting, you can always ask for questions or material beforehand, translate it, prepare your response, and then during the meeting, bring things up. So that takes away the nervousness from, you know, having to speak up in a meeting in a language that you're not completely comfortable with. So just a bit of reflection. You know, we don't have to share all of this if you're not comfortable in a group, but you can definitely think about it. Like, what are my goals? You know, after going over the seminar, like, where are my learning and development areas? Which opportunities do you want to pursue? Do you like your current role? Do you want to proceed in that and move to Europe or work with Europeans? And what's holding you back? Is it a belief that you can't learn English or that native speakers, you know, are better at speaking English, so it's harder? You know, just think about it. Like, and we don't have to talk about it now, but you can take this back with you after the webinar and just think through these things. And here like this is about a plan forward, and here's where you can work with a coach. So which skills do you need to develop? How do you assess where you're currently at and what you need to do to move forward? So before we jump into the question, the answer is I have a couple of examples for you, like how when you're speaking English, how do you introduce yourself more formally or informally? And I'm happy to practice. Actually, if someone else feels inspired to speak up, we've done the introduction. Maybe we can do something else about like what we do for work. If not, I don't know, Brian, is it an appropriate time to start taking questions? So yeah, this is kind of an open space. But yeah, if someone's feeling inspired and they want to either formally or informally bring forward one of their examples, let's start with that. I don't know if Rosie or Sumin, I think they spoke up before, but if there's anyone else in the audience that would like to share about their work.
Hello, may I speak?
Sure, Jihoon, is that how I say your name?
Yeah, it's Jian, but you can also call me Jessie. That's my English name.
Okay. Thanks, Jessie. Okay, go ahead.
So, hi, my name is Jessie. I'm currently a university student in South Korea. I'm a junior student majoring in economics, and I'm
Okay.
currently working as an intern in a PR agency. And like Rosie did, I also went to United States for an exchange student program. And then after that, I've been to Ireland for 3 months for an internship, and then I'm currently in Korea for doing another internship here.
All right. Thanks for very easily speaking about what you do. Maybe I have a different question for you. What was harder for you to do when you were first learning English? Like, how did you find it challenging to talk about the work that you did? Was it the vocabulary or the style? Was that ever a challenge for you?
For me, I really started learning English very fast when I was like 6 years old, in an
Okay.
English kindergarten, which was kind of a trend.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then I also went to a language high school because
Okay.
I love English. So I think
Okay.
I feel comfortable about it. But one
Okay.
challenge I found was when I was in Ireland, the Irish accent hit me quite quite strongly.
Yeah.
So as a person who has an American accent, like hearing the European English accents were the first challenge I had when hearing English.
Okay. And I can understand that because even if it's the same language, people speak it so differently, and the vocabulary that they use and some of the humor also varies very much. Do you have maybe a little bit of advice, right? Someone's struggling, they know their English well, they're technically very good. They just found themselves in a different country like Ireland or Scotland, and they're struggling to understand the accent. So how did you navigate that, June?
For me, I really experienced myself. So when I was doing an internship there were like French and Italian colleagues. Like I had
Mhm.
to ask like 5 times repeatedly, like the same thing because I did not get what they say. But I think it's time. Like you just have to like invest your time just listening and trying to know what they're saying. And I think that time just naturally gives you the sense of like just naturally getting used to their accent. And later on, actually, like I think a month later, I think I could just communicate without asking again.
Okay. All right. So that worked out well for you. Now you're laughing thinking about that because it's become a funny story to share in one of these webinars. So I just want to encourage everyone here that in the beginning it might seem a bit awkward and uncomfortable, but you can look back on it, and after you've kind of mastered that element, and you can come back and share that as a funny story with your friends, with your family, with your colleagues. And it's a show of vulnerability, which we also increasingly see is important for business culture, like being your whole self. And I just want to thank everyone in the webinar who's been participating for being authentic, and risking that kind of disclosure by talking about your challenges. So thank you. Thank you, Jihan, and all the best with practicing more of your English and using that for your global opportunities. Okay. All right. So here we have like a couple of examples in terms of how you can ask about a role. And I don't know if there's somebody in the audience that has a burning question about like a specific type of role that either maybe Brian's done, like market development, or me, like I've worked in consulting or coaching or pharma, and we can use that example. And we can talk a little bit more about like, what our understanding, like, or what was a lived experience working in that role. And then we can also practice asking and inquiring about an opportunity. So it's like a 2-in-1 opportunity. Yeah, does anyone have anything to ask about there? Or we can also save it for Q&A.
I'm Sumin. I'm also a full-time worker in Korea, but I'm seeking a
Okay.
job in Singapore. But I am now in the pace of messaging the local recruiters to consider myself as a
Okay.
as a foreigner, but I'd like to know more about the opportunities.
Okay.
So yeah, difference between the informal and formal one, I think, like they are like Singaporeans are also like native in English, but they are more likely to have a like Asian minded, but have a really formal English style. So like I am really getting used to the informal English because I am now working in the like American company, but there are a lot of Indian employees. So like we just have a conversation like yes, please do, but like hey, like that. But in Singapore they are taking like communication really seriously, really politely. So I think like when learning English or also asking about the role, there is a quite cultural difference between countries, like in Asia and other like India or
Mhm.
France, etc. Yeah,
Mhm.
just wanted
So
to share about it. Yeah.
yeah, so Sumin Lee, thank you for sharing that. And I think we all make cultural mistakes. Like I've made so many, and I still continue to do so every day. I made one at the beginning of the webinar where I spoke about age, which is like a no-no in Korea. So, you know, um, I understand that like you can't always get it right, and it's a process. And I'm interested that you've seen so many different like types of engaging on job opportunities in various even in the same
Yeah.
organization, right? Like with
Yeah.
different
Right.
groups, right? Yeah. So, what have you learned? Like, what is an approach that you think you've been able to get the information that you need by
Mm,
adapting? So, do you refer to a formal job description? Do you refer to a decision maker? So, do you only speak to recruiters instead of like other colleagues? What are some, like, say, common elements in your strategy that you think helped you navigate the
mm,
inter-organizational differences that you see? So same
mhm,
organization, just different people
mhm.
handling things very differently.
Yeah. Like there are I've worked in French, Chinese, American companies so far,
Okay.
but I think like I'm approaching really in a balanced way. I'm sometimes for the first time I'm always referring to the formal job description on LinkedIn, but there is a lot of recruiters' name on under the job announcements. So I always reach out to them. I'm using LinkedIn Premium. It's really great because you can draft the message using AI, but you need a human touch as well. Like I'm always like requesting a coffee chat. Oh, I'm interested in this
Yeah.
job opportunity, or I would like to know more about the cultures in Singapore, and then ask more like qualitative questions. But
Yeah.
you always have to refer to the job description or the like employees reviews on Glassdoors. Yeah,
Okay.
Glassdoor.
Yeah. So let me just try to summarize. What I'm hearing is that you realize you need a different tailored approach depending on who you're speaking to. Use a combination of your own research, so reading sort of secondary like research online, so employee
Mm-hmm.
reviews, blogs, that type of thing. And then you also directly reach out for coffee chats. And with a coffee chat, you can get a sense of like, what is this person's cultural background? How are they communicating?
Yeah.
Um, and you also reach out to recruiters. Sometimes you use the help of AI, and AI can also help you kind of adjust your tone. It's great. I think, there's so many opportunities now because of AI.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the one important thing is that you also are able to demonstrate where you come from, what your cultural understanding is, because
Mhm.
sometimes with AI you can use that, you can kind of lose that, sorry. And then the more authentic you are, you give the other person an opportunity to also engage with you, you know?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, but thanks for sharing that. And I think you've been very resourceful in your strategy. So if anyone needs a mentor like within the group, you know, if Sumin, if you're okay, maybe I think people might start reaching out to you as well, because you sound like you've been doing quite a lot for your new opportunities.
Yeah. I've been also mentoring the like Korean students who are interested in the global market, global company,
Okay.
like
Okay.
in for as a volunteer. Yeah.
Nice.
Let me share my LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you can also start connecting everybody in the group. Yeah, feel free to
Yeah. Yeah.
introduce yourselves, post your LinkedIn, and then you can also connect.
Yeah. With pleasure.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe let's just take a moment to summarize like our learnings. For me as a coach, I still working on it, but I'm developing my empathy. I'm reflecting almost daily. It's become automatic for me, whereas before I would be sometimes a bit too stressed out to do that. I learned to give and receive guidance and to seek it, actually, because sometimes I would just try to make decisions by myself and they were disasters. So I learned to kind of lead on support and active listening. So I get very excited and I, you know, speak a lot about what I want to share in my stories, and I learn to slow down and listen more and keep summarizing, reflecting on what I'm hearing to make sure that I develop a better understanding of the person I'm communicating with. I used to think I was a very good communicator, and then I learned there's always room for improvement. So I think this skill, specifically active listening, has been helpful for me. I'm still learning about intercultural sensitivity. It's a process. Sometimes I say things that don't sit well. Sometimes people say things that don't sit well with me either. But as we go along, every day there's a new learning about the culture that I'm in or the culture that I'm trying to learn about. Coaching is also about letting the client lead. So by no means will I tell you what is the best path of action for you, but it's something that we discover together and then you drive that process because it's a client-led, coachee-led process. And yeah, I think we've been kind of interacting a lot on the webinar, but if anyone has like a specific takeaway they've gained from this specific webinar, like one or two would be really, really nice to hear.
Hello, I'm MG, and now I'm working as an IT engineer, and I'm looking forward to get a job in Europe. So I have two questions. First one is we have talked about some formal or informal English, but as you already know, I'm not a native speaker, so I'm Korean, definitely Korean. So I cannot distinguish between it's formal or not. So is there any tips to distinguish those two?
Really good question, Yinji. So just to clarify that for everyone, as a non-native speaker, how do you identify like what is the formal and a non-formal way of speaking, and when do you decide to use which approach? Is that what you'd like to know?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I think it's something that you develop as a form of judgment and intuition for yourself, the more you do that. But just to kind of simplify things for yourself. When you're meeting someone for the first time, or it's one of the first times that you're interacting with them, it's always good to be a bit formal because you don't know them, you know, you don't know what their style is like. Unless you've met them in an informal setting, you know, where they're, you know, they're a bit more open. It's maybe outside of work, it's in a social setting, and they're, you know, engaging with you on a more informal level. So it could be asking you about more personal things, sharing more about themselves. It's not work related. And then you can use those cues to tailor your approach. Does that help you?
Oh, yeah, thank you. So you mean I have some experience with different kinds of situations like business meetings or casual chats and that?
Exactly.
Thank you. And another question is, as I mentioned right before, I'm looking for a job in Europe. So it's really important to getting a visa because I'm an international employee in that place. So it is relatively easy to get a job visa, a working visa in Europe. I'm just curious.
Okay, that's a really important question. I think it's on everyone's mind here. So Brian and I also discussed this before the webinar. The visa is a very important step in your application process. However, and it is challenging to find employment outside of Europe, in Europe for people that are coming from outside of Europe. Now, the thing to note is that you can always make yourself more visible and known on the European market without being there. Now, it depends on your specific situation. If you're already working in a global organization, you can work your way towards building a relocation case for your transfer. If you're looking for a completely new opportunity, there's multiple routes. You can pursue higher education. I know somebody in the group who's done her master's in Germany after coming from Korea. You can also just try to apply for jobs, but if you use the approach that we previously spoke about by reaching out to recruiters, personally engaging with them, you're building trust, which actually gives them the case to build visa sponsorship for you. And by doing that, you have to identify what are your unique strengths. As an IT engineer, for example, do you bring knowledge of a specific technology or a market that is currently missing in Europe? Do you work faster? Do you work in a more resourceful way? And you need to show them what value you're bringing by employing you, and that's what will drive them to actually create a position for you. Now, certain industries like the IT industry, they have global employers that have more of the resources to hire outside of Europe, and they tend to do that as well to kind of mix up the diversity and the skill sets. So sometimes it's about being more strategic about which industry you're in, where can you enter, and what the need is on the market. But it kind of really varies on your specific case. And I'm not a visa expert, so I wouldn't be able to advise you on that. But what I could help you with, and what Brian could also help you with, is like to really developing a strong application so you become competitive on the European labor market, where European employers or global employers see a need for what you have to offer in the global scheme of things.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So according to your advices, first one is getting a degree in Europe or reaching some headhunter or referral mentor. And third, I have some specialties in Europe workplaces, right?
Yeah, and for example, you mentioned IT. Like if you do a little bit of research on the IT industry in Europe, they tend to employ quite a few people that come from outside of Europe. So if you have a specific skill set that's lacking on the European market, you have a stronger chance.
Thank you. It's really helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, so if you don't have to share this directly with me, you can also send this in the chat or by email later to Brian and myself. But if you could just give me a little bit of feedback on how you felt during the webinar, like was it helpful? Did I at least help you feel more comfortable in an English setting, knowing that, I come from a country that's not European either, but I managed to find my way in multiple countries in Europe and outside. So yeah, if this has been helpful for you, I'd love to hear. And if you have any suggestions on what I could do better, I think that would be helpful as well. And here are my contact details, actually. Yeah. So if you would like me to kind of help you on a one-on-one basis, I'm available for coaching sessions. And I think Brian and I also have plans to create structured coaching programs for employment abroad, tailored specifically to the Korean context. So we're also going to be working on that, and you'll hear more about that in the near future. So with that, I want to thank everyone for giving me your time and presence today, for stepping outside your comfort zone for the 1 hour that we're at. And yeah, we have, I think, like an additional 15, 20 minutes if everyone has time to go over further questions in case anyone has any.
Yeah, thank you very much, Gauri.
Yeah.
We have maybe we're gonna spend 10 more minutes. We don't have
Okay.
to answer every question because you already covered the many information, and everyone seems like sharing the LinkedIn address on chat.
All right.
You can save entire chat in the Zoom function. You
Okay.
can click the three dots there. There is a save of chats. So at the end of the session, you can save the chatting script and you can add the LinkedIn. Maybe I can save it and share it
Yes,
by
please.
email later. So yeah,
Yeah, it's a good
you don't
idea.
have to rush the connecting with others. My tip for getting a job abroad. So cultural understanding is so important. And second, what's important is you need to search the Korean people already working in this specific country. You know, there are so many Koreans already working in different country. No single country has, I mean, the Koreans. I mean the vice versa. So you can find the person and connect, request to connect and coffee chat. So the art of networking, what's important is you need to be authentic enough to connect with the people because they are busy, so they don't have to answer your connection request or the inquiries. So don't push it too much. Just slow down and try to be authentic. Tell your story to the particular person when you reach out. That's the key. And there might be some opportunity to learn the company, maybe even the some opening job openings behind the job poster. So that's the quick tip for everyone.
Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting one, and maybe not one that I mentioned, but sometimes it's good to seek out people that have had similar experiences to yourself or share the culture, like, you know, Koreans themselves, because they can give you specific tips or knowledge that's, you know, tailored to your experience. And yeah, if there's anyone in this group that's, you know, happy to help the group, you know, you can always also just post that in the chat, and then we can also reroute some queries your way.
And we have 3 questions I collected, so I will share my screen. So you can stop sharing, Gauri.
Yeah,
And
right.
we don't have to answer everything. Maybe we have several categories, like one category is about European job market and visa and job hunting and education skills. So maybe pick 1 or 2 questions from each category and answer. So what about the first category first? What would you like to answer?
If you just share your screen. Okay, there we go. Right. I would want to speak about, I mean, I would like to speak on hiring practices, but obviously I wouldn't know what this case is in South Korea. But I can briefly speak a little bit about UK and continental Europe, if that's okay with you.
Okay.
Right. So, in my experience, because I'm recently been in that position where I've been looking for opportunities mostly in Europe, and I've also been working in the UK as well. The network matters a lot. So if you know people who already work in the organizations, if you're proactively reaching out, this really makes a big difference. It doesn't mean that they will necessarily create a position for you, but they will remember you and reach out to you when openings come up. And that's been my experience. Um, Before I joined the pharma industry and I went into consulting, I used to just apply purely with job descriptions and go through the interview process, and that really worked for me. So I wasn't as proactive about networking. However, if you have a competitive profile and they really need you, they will, you know, they will just go through multiple rounds of interviews. They'll follow their process and give you the offer as soon as they're ready to hire. In the Netherlands, for example, I used to speak to lots of recruiters. That was one of my way. I used to go and speak to people in person, present my case, talk about the jobs that I wanted. And the more persistent I was, the more trust I built, and then they were likely to present me in front of employers. That was my approach, I think, both for the UK as well as Europe. I was lucky in the UK that through my university days and my professional as well as personal experiences, I had just built up a network that way. So that helped me as well. So just to summarize, formal processes are followed, but the more you network, the more you reach out and have coffee chats with people, the more likely you are to be accelerated or to find opportunities that are not on the market yet.
Okay, thank you very much. What about the visa part? You already mentioned a little bit here in the presentation before.
I spoke about the visa. Like I said, it was very case specific and I'm not an expert. However, I've been researching more of the venture capital and the startup ecosystem a little bit in Europe, and there are many countries in Europe that are enabling innovative companies and talent to come work in their startup ecosystem. So there are specific schemes like startup visas where you can have almost an extra year to work inside a startup. If you meet their labor market requirement or if you're setting up a company. Now, that's not necessarily, interviewing for a specific position in an established company, but for example, if you have a great company and you can set up an office in a European country, that also makes things easier. And I have a Asian friend, she's actually not Korean, but she's from the Philippines. She used to work for a large global company in Philippines. She did very well there, and she knew many, many people from the Philippines working for a similar organization in the Netherlands. So when she came there, she did a master's degree, and then through her network, she found her way into multiple opportunities, and she really recommends that. So that kind of helped her also with the visa process because she had strong sponsorship on behalf of a community and an organization and a track record. Okay.
Yeah, about the visa,
Yeah.
I think two cases I saw. One is a remote job. So searching for the remote job, you can work without visa for the particular company in the particular country. I saw several cases on LinkedIn. And the second one is, the working holiday visa. It's not just getting a part-time job in their local culture. Some people get real job based on the working holiday visa, and the company
Yeah.
extended their visa to the work visa after the working holiday visas ended. So that's the case I want to share.
Yeah, and that's actually a really, really innovative approach as well. Thank you. Let's talk about how can I efficiently network with European professionals to increase job opportunities. So I can just speak from personal experience because, like I said, I also work for myself and I'm also looking to network with people. I do a lot of attending industry webinars and I look up the companies I'm interested in and see if they have any events. So if you happen to be in a location where they're hosting in-person events, I would say nothing like it. It's nothing beats in-person interaction, seeing how people engage. How can you learn about the company culture? What are they actually looking for? What types of people work there? Alternatively, if you have time, once a week, twice a week, try and attend, webinars or like coaching sessions that are organized by these companies. And that's when you can really personally interact with people working in Europe or European companies. If you're already employed in a global company or like a large business in Korea that they have a European department, for example, or European colleagues, try to see, are there any initiatives organized by the organization itself where you can mingle and form connections? Try to reach out to them. You can write them an email, say, I'm curious to learn about what you're doing, tell me more. So that could be some ways to sort of, develop more of a practice and a habit around networking and finding out what you need to about Europe. Okay. Education and skills. Is a master's degree necessary to secure a job in Europe? I think it really depends on the industry that you're in. So for example, if you're working for a European institution, many people have studied European law or politics, if that's the type of area you want to go into. Alternatively, like I said, industries like technologies with IT, sometimes even like sales, there's a big sales talent gap in Europe. You would not need a master's degree from a European institution. However, sometimes you might hit a ceiling professionally because certain organizations might have policies that they cannot promote you to further responsibility if you don't have a master's degree. But if you have a master's degree somewhere else, you can also try to convert that and show them that it's equivalent to Europe. So that's not necessarily something that would limit you. Industry-specific questions. Okay. European cosmetics companies hiring foreign professionals for quality control or legal positions? That's a really interesting question. Given that, there is more of a global shift in this type of industry because this is, it's a commoditized industry and people are trying to shift to like low-cost manufacturing centers, which is really bringing up the role of regulation and quality standards. So if you can demonstrate that you have a very, very thorough understanding of global and international quality and safety standards, you have an added advantage, especially in these cosmetics companies, because increasingly people want high quality products, even if they come from abroad, and that could be your unique kind of positioning.
All right. How was the webinar? Everyone, please say something to Gauri.
Yeah. Or you
I
can post
personally
it.
really liked your detailed explanation of everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. I'm not sure if there's anything in the chat. Okay, there's some people who want to connect about higher education.
May I jump into the conversations? This is Chad from Korea.
Hi,
Yeah,
Chad.
yeah, nice to meet you. And then thank you for your very valuable conversation today.
Yeah.
Um, I think that okay, briefly I introduce myself first. I'm the over 20 years working at the pharmaceutical company. So I'm the transition period. So I'm also the finding the reimbursement, re-employment, and also the finding the my new a business as well in the meantime.
Okay.
So I have one question about the clarify of the basically I fully understand that there are both way to cultural thing and also systemical things. You already mentioned that is a visa, and also if we in the organizations the company provide the allocation reallocation package something like that, but we are just apply for the overseas companies.
Mhm.
They sometimes support the visa and also the relocation packages, but
Mhm.
I don't know how many percentage to the support by a company. I- This is the one of the very important thing for the our side, right? So how do you think that is a visa and then other support for the um, employee?
So thank you for that question. If I understand correctly, you would like to know what percentage of employers or what percentage of roles do companies offer relocation support as well as visa sponsorship,
Yeah,
correct?
definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to say I know the percentage because I haven't looked into that number specifically. However, I can tell you that if you focus on global organizations, especially
Yeah.
departments that have higher budgets, that are actually growing
Yes.
and they're expanding in regions that you have expertise in, that's your best bet. But sometimes you also have departments that need turnarounds, and local talent cannot help with that. So they have to hire externally. So that could also be a situation, but I believe it does vary by situation. There are internal policies sometimes,
Yes.
not so with diversity and equity and inclusion requirements, where certain companies do need to hire externally or, from a local market for a local role. So I would encourage if you can find information on the company policies
Mhm.
online, I would encourage you to read through them. And meanwhile, I'm happy to look to see if I can find some data, maybe from like the Chamber of Commerce somewhere, and try to bring that back to you through Brian, or you can leave me your email and I can come back to you on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question.
Yeah.
Suyeon said that what is the top country in Europe that you receive the most inquiries?
You mean here about like working in Europe or countries that are looking for Koreans?
In Europe, I think.
I think most people are interested in Germany and the UK because they tend to be larger markets, and I think they really, really attract international
Well,
talent.
she said both.
Ah, okay. So I definitely think like from outside of Europe, people are very interested in Germany and the UK. I was particularly very drawn to the UK when they were still part of Europe, officially. And vice versa, I think countries that are looking for Korean talent, that one's trickier. I do feel like there's certain countries that are opening up more to Asians and Koreans in general. While I was preparing for the webinar, I had somebody that I connected actually with Brian, someone from Czech Republic, where they were building a nuclear power plant where they were really looking to draw in more Korean talent for that specific sector. So that was a new insight for me, of course. So it really depends, I think, on the country and the type of industry. But if you can look up the South Korean European Free Trade Agreement, There are many trade priorities listed there. I think the dairy industry and the protein industry was one of them. I'm sure skincare is going to be more important as well. So you can look to see what industries are important, where are those industries located across Europe, and then you can try to find out where would an opportunity be for you. Yeah. Thank you for all your feedback. I'm seeing really, really positive experiences there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining. We have limited time, so maybe we can have another webinar later. I'm thinking that we're gonna have some program for you guys to get a job, and I personally help Korean people get a job over the last decade. So me and Gauri will work on that for you guys as well. So thank you for the participation. I'll share the LinkedIn address that you guys shared in the chat. I saved the chat already, and I'm going to share by email the recorded version of a YouTube video. You can double check later. So last comment, Gauri, for everyone.
Yeah, so thank you so much for joining. I hope that my webinar was helpful, and I want to wish you all the very best for pursuing your opportunities abroad. Thank you.
Thank you everyone. 감사합니다. 오늘 참여해 주셔서 너무 감사드리고 또 행사 있으면 이메일 드리겠습니다. 오늘 고맙습니다. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Gauri, again. It was amazing. So see you later.
Speak soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.